Hi, welcome to Launch Media. My name is Isaac Wright. Here today with me is Mr. Steve Kaczmarek. He's the founder of Borealis Fat Bike. We are at the world headquarters for Borealis Fat Bike here in Colorado Springs. So you have been part of a lot of different startup companies, correct, in the past. You're a very successful entrepreneur. I have a list of, a couple projects that you've been part of. You were the vice president of Team K, vice president of sales and marketing for Chromatic Technologies. You have created and run many companies, taken part, in that kind of stuff. So, can you give us a little bit of a rundown of what Borealis Fat Bike is?
Well, Borealis is really all about fat bikes. That's all we do. So that's the only thing we focus on. And I always say it's really important to know exactly what you do. And when I've taught or when I speak with our sales groups, I always say just put a box around who you are. And if you go outside of that box, you may want to reconfigure your strategy. So for us, it's all about a tire size of 3 inches and wider. And that's how we define fat bikes. Not everybody does, but so we start with 3 inches and we go up to 5 inches, and we have different rim sizes. But ultimately, it's about the frame and the sport and what fat bikes do. And it really started with fat bikes in Alaska. Guys were doing all sorts of different things up in Alaska and putting rims together and doing basically different concepts to try to get from point A to point B on what I call a snowmobile trail. And so it started 20, 30 years ago, and when I rode a fat bike, I said, hey, this is really cool, but let's make it lighter and let's bring the geometry a little closer. So it's more of a mountain bike, but just like a monster truck, you got to make everything bigger to accommodate the larger tires. Yeah. And that's what Borealis is, and after the Aurora Borealis, and that's where the name came from.
Wow, that's really cool. So you talk you went to Alaska. Why did you get into Borealis Fat Bikes? Why did the idea, stimulate something in you to take action and go on this, in a completely different place?
Yeah. So what happened was I was volunteer teaching at Colorado College, ran into a student who worked for what is now a competitive fat bike company, and that company. There were some business decisions that were going on at the time, and so I had an opportunity to ride a fat bike for the first time. Those business deals didn't work out, and so the student, he and I started Borealis. I said, well, skip that deal, let's just start our own company. But I said, let's do a couple of things that are mandatory. I needed a bike out of carbon fiber, and we needed to make sure we were at 25 pounds or less. And so we introduced our first bike in September of 13, and it weighed 21.5 pounds, so that was really exciting. Wow. And we were the first carbon fat bike to market, so that was really exciting. Yeah, so we went to the Inner Bike Show in Las Vegas, and we were really the first company to produce a carbon frame fat bike, and we were about 10 pounds lighter than everybody else in the category. So what was supposed to be a small little company out of my garage quickly grew into this. We were hoping to sell $150,000 to $200,000 worth of sales or bikes during our first year, and we took orders for over 300,000 that first week. Shipped over $1.1 million, $1.2 million in our first quarter, and over $3 million in our first year.
Wow,
it grew very fast.
That's really crazy. Yeah. That's awesome. So how is the bike business? How is the fat bike business in comparison to the competitors of regular bikes?
Well, today it's identical to really pick any other big name brand bike, and whether it's a road bike or a downhill bike or a cross bike or anything. 3 years ago, we were one of maybe 6 or 7 companies that produced fat bikes. And today, last time I tried counting how many companies were out there producing a fat bike, it was over 80 worldwide. So we really have to focus in on differentiating our product and making it better than everybody else, offering better components, making sure that we have the ability where customers can customize the bike. So they can pick any component that we have in stock or tire or rim set, and we don't charge extra for that. So it's that service component that we think is a big deal.
What would the value proposition be, for just anybody? Like, what would it be like, that they would say instead of getting like a specialized bike? There's a fat bike,
It's a bad word. No.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
What's really special about fat bikes?
About fat bikes or our brand?
I guess your brand.
Our brand, yeah. So, we always think of ourselves as the Mercedes in the industry. So a little higher end, we think better quality, better attention to detail. Mercedes can demand a premium, and it's hard in the bike industry to really demand that premium, especially as a newer player. Now, we're trying to get there in some of the out years, but right now, while we're still establishing the brand, we have to be very price competitive because a lot of people aren't going to recognize that our shifters are better, our cassettes are better, or the tires or rims are better. And so then they'll shift to a Specialized or a Trek that have tremendous market potential or market presence, I should say, market power. And so we're trying to stay smaller while growing very, very carefully. What we don't want to do is ever be caught in a position where I've got to sell 20,000 bikes a year, or otherwise we're going out of business. So
Yeah.
we're really that boutique brand where people who really understand the components and want a phenomenal fat bike, they'll buy a Borealis.
So, in your own merit and your own thoughts, would you consider yourself to be an entrepreneur?
I guess by the pure definition, I'm going to have to say yes. A lot of people have asked me, was I always an entrepreneur? Did I just become one? And my answer's always been, my dad died when I was 12. And so at 12 years old, I had to learn how to do everything, whether I liked it or not. And so I always knew how to hustle, I guess, and I was always hungry. So those are kind of the characteristics of an entrepreneur. You got to hustle, you got to be hungry, you got to always work those deals. And if you don't, if you ever just, rest for a day, you can skip something. And so that's who I am. And I think because of those traits, whether I like them or not, and why they are here for either the family reasons or I just ended up that way, I don't know. They're critical. I mean, you have to be passionate about what you do, and then you have to be obsessive, and then you have to just be crazy.
Yeah.
And if you have all of that, then maybe you'll succeed. And I've been lucky. I've been involved in a handful of companies, and we've grown them very, very quickly, and generated a lot in sales, and fortunately some profit as well.
Mm-hmm, definitely. So, what would your definition of an entrepreneur be?
Definition of an entrepreneur, I'm going to say, is somebody that has a phenomenal idea that they fully vetted. And so I guess they have to be able to vet the idea up front, because that's where a lot of people who think that they're entrepreneurs go wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of people could have said that the pet rock was just crazy. And, are they an entrepreneur or are they a marketing genius? I'm going to say they're a marketing genius. I don't know if they're an entrepreneur, but you not only have to have this great idea, but you have to understand how you're going to engineer it, design it, what's the supply chain, what's the business model. You got to be able to have that big, big vision. And then, ultimately, you got to go out and sell it. And you also have to understand what your weaknesses are. A lot of entrepreneurs think that they're good at it all.
Yeah.
And very few are. But then you have to be able to assemble the right team, and somehow you got to fund it. So raising capital is always a big challenge there as well.
So you talked about how you got into entrepreneurialism when your father passed away. Explain a little bit about how that transition into why did you get into entrepreneurialism? Why did that incite that event incite something in you to take you away from a professional career, a professional life?
Yeah, I think so. When you're 12 years old, your father dies and you have no money. We were poor. So again, going back to the whole hunger dynamic, when you don't know when your next meal is coming or how you're going to pay for anything, you're constantly looking for ways to generate cash. And so for me, early on, it was selling popcorn for the whatever club. at the various sports games and being able to take a small commission. And then it was selling Christmas wreaths for the Boy Scouts. And then it was selling, Pop-Tarts, candy, and whatever to kids in high school. And then when I did enter the professional world, I saw these huge amounts of money that I was making for the company, but my paycheck was this big.
Yeah.
And I said, wait a second. I mean, I can do this, and I can do it very, very well, but why am I making hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for these companies, and I'm making 30 grand a year? And it was that kind of backward deal where the commission structures weren't appropriate for what I was doing, or so I felt, that I said, I'm done. And I said, I'm tired of working for somebody else, and I'm tired of giving all those millions of dollars to somebody else. I want that. And that really happened in 2001 when Oracle Packaging started. So that's when that was really the start of me saying, I'm done with the professional world. Now I'm really going to go into the whole entrepreneurial strategy, life strategy.
Yeah. So with Borealis Fat Bike, I know that for me personally, I have had trouble with finding really like what is a good idea. What's like appropriate and what's a good idea to pursue. If you could like give some advice to somebody like my age, what would like how would they know what a good idea is?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. So I actually, at the time Oracle Packaging and everything was going on, I had this great idea, and it was called a ski tie. And most people think of the ties that you go around your skis to keep them together when you're walking so they don't fall apart. But my idea was a men's tie that you would wear with a suit. And the idea was you would basically put a plastic insert at the bottom. You would make it look like a downhill ski. I figured Rossignol, K2, Dina Star, all of the big players would want this. And oh my God, I was obsessed. I thought this was the best thing. Didn't need to talk to anybody about it. I'm just going to go full bore. Tried to get a patent, went overseas. Spent all this time and money. To later find out that a number one problem with a ski tie is skiers don't wear ties. Yeah. And all I had to do was ask about 20 people ahead of time, what do you think about this? And I would have realized very, very early on that my $1 billion idea wasn't worth anything. And people get very myopic about their ideas, and they say, this is going to work, this is going to work, and they just don't listen. And so I would say the first thing to do is come up with a prototype if you can, and that oftentimes is expensive and or time consuming, but come up with that prototype and take it to a focus group. I don't care if it's your friends or family. If it is your friends or family, you have to have them swear that they will tell you the honest to God truth and not tell you what they think you want to hear. They got to tell you it sucks, or be comfortable saying that if that's the way they feel. And you'll save yourself an awful lot of time and effort and money. So that's where I would start. If everybody thinks it's a great idea, then take it to a larger focus group or a different demographic. Make sure that it's fully vetted up front before you've spent really any time or money. And then after everybody's like, oh my God, this thing is this is going to go viral very, very quickly. Yeah. Only if you get that reaction, then I'm going to say pursue it. Because the opportunities are endless. So if you have a good idea, why pursue a good idea where you might make some money? Go after that amazing idea where at least you have some opportunity to make some real money.
How did you land on Borealis Fat Bike? After so many different careers and so many different things you've done, how did you why did you land on Borealis?
Yeah, well, like I said, I rode this bike, a fat bike, and I said, hey, this is really neat. And I had lots of time. I actually had retired very early, and the student that I met, it just kind of evolved. But initially, it was supposed to be a much smaller operation out of my garage, not taking up a ton of time. And when you sell over $3 million in your first year, you kind of go from 0 to 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you're playing catch up. And so it was really 2 years of catch up. and this is, you know, our third year now. We're almost done with our third year, and things have kind of settled in. And now the market conditions have changed, and lots of competition, and so we're evolving. But because we're small, we can pivot very, very quickly, which is what we're doing now.
Yeah. So, you know, what I've noticed in a lot of people is that, you know, when you start an entrepreneurial venture, it has to take passion. You know, that is the number one thing that you have to have. So I know that it's hard to find something that you're truly passionate about, you know, and to really cultivate that into a business or an idea or a product. Do you have any advice on that front, like finding what you're passionate about and, you know, being able to know that that's something that you want to pursue?
Yeah, being able to identify a new product or develop a new product that you can also be passionate about is nirvana. It's hard to do. Am I passionate about fat bikes? Absolutely. There's no question about it. And the reason I'm really, really passionate about fat bikes is because I love riding bikes, but I don't like getting hurt and falling. And I'm not the best rider in the world, and I oftentimes get critiqued because of that. I'm like, that's okay. I ride, and I ride a lot, and I ride a fat bike because I don't like falling. And those big fat tires help me. They're more stable, and I get to ride it year round. And that's where my passion comes from. Now, there's a lot of guys that will be passionate about the components, and I want it to look good. I want it to perform super, super well, just like my Mercedes. And it's got to be really, really top notch. I think if you're going to do it once, do it right. Be passionate about that. Be passionate about the business model, and what your business stands for. We are the fat bike company. We only do fat bikes. We want to be the world leader. And I'm passionate about that from a business. And that business is portraying an image, an identity, a brand. And we have a great brand. Everybody knows Borealis. They know that they're quality bikes. We're also perceived as very expensive. And that's okay as long as sales continue. So that's, you know, every day you got to wake up. And if you're passionate about it and you can put a smile on your face, that beats waking up going, oh, another day that I somehow hope to get through. And then when it's over, then I'm going to go do something I really enjoy.
Yeah.
So it's nice if you can get there. It's hard, though. A lot of people end up starting companies and are like, oh my God, why did I do this? So if you can consciously avoid that, that's a bonus.
Yeah. So I've been studying, like, you know, fame for a really long time, you know, for the last 11 months, you know, just how that works. You know, you spoke a little bit about how, like, you, in fat bike, this is not the only fat bike brand, correct? Like, this is, so you said, you know, you want to make this like the top. You want to have, like, everybody know Borealis is the best. Right. Yeah. So, you know, what's your opinion on, you know, how like you want to get to that, to get to that place, you know, for fame, you know, for having everybody know, like, what do you think of that? I'm not phrasing this right.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. Okay. So yeah, the strategy. So here's where this company is. We had this meteoric rise. Okay, we started from nothing. You know, we've sold, you know, $7, $8, $9 million worth of product in less than 3 years. Unheard of. We're profitable. The company is great. The brand is great. And so where do we go from here, right? Okay, so we have some components that we know are not as good as some of the others out on the market. So we need to get rid of our inventory very, very quickly and keep getting to that new component package. And we need to manage our branding where it is nothing but the best, but that takes a lot of time and money. So what we don't want to do is spend tons of money giving off the wrong brand or image. And there's something to be said for having a smaller quantity out there. If everybody can get a Borealis, then it loses a little bit of its appeal. So we're purposely going to stay small. We're going to produce 2,000 bikes a year, and that's it. It's easier to plan. It's easier to manage. The world understands there's only 2,000 that are made a year. So it's kind of, Adele played last night at the Pepsi Center. Guess what? It sold out like that. I think it was, 2.5 minutes, and it was sold out. Why? It's a limited commodity, or a limited number of tickets, and it went fast. And we're not there yet. It takes us the full year to sell 2,000, but boy, would I be happy if I had pre-orders for 2,000 right now, and that's all I had to do between now and January.
So there's a concept that I've kind of cultivated and come up with over the last couple months. When I started working on my own business stuff, I thought that, wouldn't it be so cool if I could get a 1973 Corvette Stingray? I call it the...
With flames on the side?
Oh, yeah. I find it or I call it the Find Your Corvette concept. That's, I really wanted that car. And, every time that I imagined, working on this project, the thing that would come to my brain was that Corvette Stingray. And what I realized is that it wasn't the object itself, it was the idea of how my life would be better, or what my life would be like when I got to the end point of my business. When I had the ability to buy a $15,000 car at 17. I had that income. I had just that whole thing around that. So have you ever had something like that really motivated you, or that in your brain that's when you knew that you were there?
Yes. When I was in my late teens, I said by 25, I'm going to have a convertible 450 SL Mercedes. I'm like, that's that. If I can get there, to your point, mine was a Mercedes, yours a Corvette.
Yeah.
Same dream. And as I got closer to 25 and could easily afford that car, it became, I want a house. And then I want to have a net worth of $1 million or more by the time I'm 30, and I want to have a net million of $2 million or more by the time I'm 40, or whatever the numbers were. And so for me, it kept getting there, because as soon as I felt that I was there, I'm like, I'm a hunter.
Yeah.
I don't want to process the meat. I just want to go out and do the kill, hand it back to somebody else, and I enjoy the hunt. The day-to-day account management, if you're dealing in a shop, it doesn't excite me. And so now, I'll be 50 in a couple of months, and everything's changed. It's like, I've got the big house, I've got the car, the kids are doing great. And for all intents and purposes, other than buying a jet, I can probably do just about anything I ever wanted. And my wife won't let me buy a jet, so that's just, whether I can afford it or not, that's never going to happen. But the idea is, now what's more important, and what is more important today is, which is I'm finding harder to do, is finding the time to go ride a bike. I can buy anything I want. What I can't do is buy time. And so for me, it's, how do I get the time with the kids before they're gone? How do I get time with my wife? In all this craziness, how do I get time for me to exercise? I'm 20 pounds heavier than I would prefer to be, because I'm spending more time here than out on the trail. I was in great shape when I started this company, and it's hard. I'm not practicing my Spanish. I'm not practicing the piano. I'm not doing all the chores around the house that need to be done. That's my goal. So it shifted from the car to the house to millions or whatever, to I can't do this. I don't have the time. So I have to learn how to say no. I'm not very good at that.
Yeah. So entrepreneurialism is just important to you. It's shifted from the objects to time freedom. You really want to have the life of, being able to do cool things with cool people, or, however that works in your brain.
Right. Yeah. Cool things with cool people right now are my family. I want to do cool things with my kids. They're 13 and 11, and in just a handful of years they're going to be going to college, and then I'm done. Not done, but the opportunity to say, hey, let's go for a hike, let's go for a bike ride. That's going to be tough when they're in college. And soon they'll be off and on their own and married and kids, and there won't be time for dad. And so that time period is very, very precious, and it's going to disappear. So that's what I have to focus on right now, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. And when you're younger, I found an awful lot of my friends who wanted to be entrepreneurs, and you know what? They'd come into a place like this, which is pretty cool now, but this was a disaster when we started. They're like, oh, I'll hire somebody to paint the walls, or I'll hire somebody to do the lighting, or the, whatever. And all last summer, every single day, I was here painting and cleaning and fixing. And could I have afforded somebody? Can I afford to have somebody do it? You bet. But that's not how you start a company.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends are like, yeah, well, I don't have time. I got to go get my facial or my manicure, my pedicure, my workout, or they got to get a new snowmobile or an ATV or a new boat, and it's like, can't have it all. Yeah. And so you give up everything if you're gonna win in the entrepreneur race. You got to give it up. You got to give all of it up. And then when you get to a point where you hopefully can start reaping the rewards of all your efforts, that's when it's really cool.
Yeah. So a little bit more of a practical look at the business side of stuff. When I was starting out on my product, it's called Orange Guitar Studios. It's basically a simple guitar learning method where people can learn how to play guitar in like less than 2 weeks. Just play anything.
Sure.
When I started working on this about 9 months ago, I've gone through planning and kind of going on it, or taking action on it in different ways. But at one point, I was just planning. And then just planning again and planning and planning. It was a constant planning cycle. I wasn't sure. Have you ever had an experience like that, and how did you get out of it? That kind of a thing.
I call that analysis paralysis, and or you can say the infinite planning stage. For me, I take the 80-20 rule. I'm going to say, look. There's only so much information, and you're never going to get it all. It's never going to be perfect, and hopefully you make better decisions or good decisions more often than not. And at some point you just got to say, I'm going for it. If you ski or snowboard, and eventually you're looking down that cliff going, okay, off I go. And sometimes you land on your face, and other times you shred it, and it's awesome. And for me, and it kind of drives my wife nuts, but I'll go into a restaurant that I've never been to before, and I'll say, yep, I'm going to do that. Drives her nuts. She's like, what? And I'm like, it looked good. I'm good with it. I got enough information. That looks good. I feel like that. I'm good. Now, you got to be careful when there's, $10,000 or $1 million or $2 million attached to those decisions. You obviously don't want to just go.
Yeah.
But at some point, you got to say, okay, I'm ready. And if you're not scared, and if you're not thinking you need to do more analysis, you probably shouldn't be making that decision.
Yeah.
You're going to be scared. I still wake up at 2 in the morning going, oh my God, what the hell am I doing? Still, I don't know why, but I do. I stare at the ceiling almost every night going, what about this? What about that? I don't know. Hopefully that'll change someday.
Yeah. What my dad likes to say is that, you really don't know what you're doing unless you're really articulate about, what your product is, unless you have a really good pitch, because that means you have a passion. That means you're super passionate about it. That means that, you know what you're about. So in terms of articulation, when did that come for you with, any of your projects? When did that articulation start to, come, like when you meet some dude in a coffee shop and, you can give the most amazing pitch, and, that guy's getting super jazzed about it. He's like, wow, that sounds amazing. Yeah. At what point did that come for you?
The idea of the pitch, the very, very concise pitch, starts from really from teaching. And this goes back to the box. So here's your box, and you should be able to define what's in that box very, very easily. And so when I was teaching, I always said, well, what's your elevator pitch? And the students all had different ideas. And we'd first day of class, what's your elevator pitch? And they would kind of stumble over the words and this and that. And for me, with the Fat Bike company, it was really, really easy because what do? Well, we make mountain bikes with fat tires. Everybody gets it, right? It's that simple. And if you have, on the elevator, if you have a couple more floors, well, we make them light, and we have changed the geometry, and we've done a whole bunch of things. And you can add the different components. But it's really all about, what do? We make fat tires and happen to, put a nice frame on it, and it's a downhill bike.
Yeah.
So, and that's it. It doesn't have to be more complicated. And oftentimes people will make them more complicated than they need to be. I've heard awful elevator pitches. And it's just like, look, you've lost me. I have no idea what your company does.
Yeah.
And so again, like the focus group, go to your friends, family, anybody. Hey, listen to this. What do you think? Do you understand what I'm going to do? And if they're saying, huh, you might want to work on it.
I think that that's the danger in, building something that's not, a bike with fat tires, especially, with what we're doing here. It's I don't have a perfect pitch yet because, it's really just adapting from, one thing to the other. I think that's what's hard for, I think, a lot of people is, I can't really describe it because, we do like so much, but getting that passion aligned, getting that really, really extreme focus on what you're doing.
Yeah, but you've told me nothing about your product, right? But if I'm going to give you your pitch, I'm going to say, I'm going to teach you 5 chords.
Yeah.
On the guitar, which are the most common chords. And oh, by the way, I'm going to give you the book that has 1,000 songs associated with those 5 chords. And in 2 weeks, you're going to be able to play 1,000 songs. Let's say that was your pitch. Any questions?
Yeah, I mean, it's very
Spot
specific.
on, right? Boom, you get it, right? And for that, it's $19.95 a week for the next 20 years, right? Wouldn't that be nice? But, and book 2 is the next 5 chords.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's, but instantly, exactly what I'm doing. He's going to teach me 5 chords. I might have to learn how to strum a little bit. And here's 1,000 songs, which is the playbook, and I can play every single one of those. Easy, done, over with. No explanation required. Yeah. And I'm not at the 5th floor on the elevator yet, right? So if you're making it more complicated than that, then I'm going to say pause. And are you sure you need all of those extra widgets and options for me, I make a fat bike. It's a mountain bike with big tires, and I'm going to let you pick a bunch of different colors and components. That's about as complicated as it ever gets.
So if you can give like one tip to like the audience, which is, people just like me, about becoming articulate, like what would that tip be? Like a really tangible thing that they can start doing.
Yeah, I have this expression that if you're an engineer and know how to talk, you're worth your weight in gold. So you don't want to be the engineer. You don't want to be the slick used car salesman. No offense to used car salesmen, but that's common reference. You want to know your product, but remember, you're going to know it better than anybody. So you don't want to get at that level. You want to just pretend that it's the TV spot. And you want to say, hey, ladies and gentlemen, here's who I am. This is what I do. Be humble, be sincere, enthusiastic, show your passion. If you have that monotone, I have a bike, it's 26-inch base, we have 11 gears, any questions? You're never going to sell it. Yeah. You got to convey that I have the best product on earth, and this is why you're going to buy it. Showing passion, not slick salesman. And that's hard. That's hard. I always say, if I can sell it to myself, I can sell it to anybody. And I'm a tough customer. So I think if you start with that, then fine-tune it for your own personality and depending upon who your audience is. I mean, I have a hard time speaking with engineers because they want all the little specifics and details. They're going to want to know the head angle, and they're going to want to know what kind of aluminum it's made out of, or all sorts of stuff. And that it's like, okay, why? If you really need to know that, I can look it up and I can tell you what it is. And we have charts, and I'm not going to memorize all that stuff. Guys, this is a crazy good bike. It's an amazing bike. If the head angle is 69 versus 70, does that really affect your your decision process? And it will for a certain demographic. I'm not dismissing that. But for the general population, it's like, get on it and ride it, and you're going to love it.
So, did you have an idea when you were like my age?
Hundreds.
When,
Seriously, I did.
Yeah. Like, did you have something that you were like super passionate about? You're like, when I get older, that is what I'm going to do.
Yep. I'll even tell you what it is.
Yes, tell me
Still
what it is.
haven't done it.
Tell me what it is.
So here it is. So suntan lotion, right? You got to buy SPF 5, 10, 15, 20, 100, whatever it is, right? Why don't they build a tube where you can just dial it in, where the SPF factor's on one side and maybe the oil's on the other? I don't know anything about the chemistry. You just dial it in and say, oh, you need 30. So you dial 30, your mom dials 20, your brother dials 80.
Sounds awesome.
One bottle serves it all, right? Still an idea.
Yeah, so...
Go to Coppertone. You can sell it. Just give me royalties, right? Here it is. This is the deal.
So...
I want a copy of this tape. So.
Yeah.
I'll give you one.
Yeah. I mean, great idea, right? Now, I don't know if the chemistry can support that. I'm not a
Yeah.
chemist. And oh, by the way, I got busy with bikes. So much for SPF 1 to 100 bottle, right?
So, in a little bit more of a practical sense, like with like college or, with a profession, did you ever have like an idea of that profession that you wanted to go into? Like for me, I'd love to become a musical performer, but who knows in like 10 years if that's, if I'm going to want to change gears to something completely different. Did you have something like that? And, why did you change gears?
Yeah, I wanted to be a cardiologist. I started at Colorado College, which has a block plan program, started in sciences, and thought this was the dream. Unfortunately, the CC system isn't a good college if you're going to go into medicine. Not that you can't do it, it's just really not the best environment. And one simple decision where I was going to college, big decision really, not only is it expensive, but it's a big decision, I didn't think it through because I was 17, 18 years old and didn't have the proper guidance to get me there. And so do I regret it? I don't know. I can't say that where I ended up is bad. It's worked out pretty well. Are there days that I still wish I had been a doctor? Yeah, but I wouldn't have met my wife, and I wouldn't have my kids, and I wouldn't have all this craziness with fat bikes. So it's an impossible answer. You're never going to be able to answer that. And but I think it's important if you're 16, 17, 18, 20, and you know where you're going, you're way ahead of the game. Because I sure didn't when I was that age.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's have the closing question. If you could give one piece of advice to your 15-year-old self or another 15-year-old, what would that piece of advice be?
Wow. Buy Tesla stock, Uber stock. Okay. Outside of that, I think it really would come down to relaxing a little bit more. I was petrified about succeeding. I didn't know how to get all those amazing things in life without being on this speed treadmill. But I think it would be, you can get all of that at a slower pace. I think I gave up a lot of opportunities that I probably could have done because I definitely had the time. I didn't think I had the time. I think it comes back down to time. Enjoy the opportunities that are around you. I remember flying to London for lunch for a business meeting and flew right home. Why? Why didn't I go see Big Ben or the Changing of the Guards or something? It's like, nope, got to get right back. And nothing would have changed had I delayed it a day. I think that's a regrettable mistake.
So that comes back to, now you're really into time freedom. Yeah, well, thank you so much
Oh, you're welcome.
for being here with me
Yeah.
today. You've got an awesome place, and just thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you as well. This is Launch Media. My name is Isaac Wright again. Thank you for watching, and you can subscribe to our email list, and you can go to our Facebook and Twitter pages to get more updates on this, and you can also go to launchmedia.org to see more videos of me interviewing entrepreneurs. So thank you.
Thank you.